This is just a brief video on Japanese knotweed. That's right, Japanese knotweed. It's that universally hated weed that gets in people's yards and destroys their driveways and presses up against the foundations of their homes and cracks the foundations and such. While it is true that Japanese knotweed is very aggressive on ground that's suitable for it, in places like this glade in the forest, it's not really all that aggressive. It will take over a little patch of ground where the soil happens to be suitable for it, and it likes high, dry soil that happens to be kind of poor by the standards of other plants. So it's not usually taking up terrain that many desirable plants would choose to grow on. But it likes waste places with poor soil that's high and dry, like right here, and it does not like forests. It won't expand into the shadows, period. This one patch, little patch here, it's only about 25 feet, maybe 30 feet wide. This one patch here has been here for years and it's never expanded a foot. But right here, the ground happens to be right for it, so it's pretty much taken over the whole patch. Now, while Japanese knotweed is widely reviled, the truth is it's an incredibly useful plant. The roots contain resveratrol. That is the incredibly medicinal ingredient one finds in red wine that's very good for the blood. In fact, it's an extremely useful treatment for removing low-density lipids, aka cholesterol, from the blood. It lowers blood pressure. It's a remarkably useful plant. The upper parts of the plant, such as we see right here, these are useful as well. When these upper parts are 6 to 18 inches tall, you can use them like asparagus. The texture and taste is very similar to asparagus, but a bit tart. When they grow from about 18 inches to 3 feet, 4 feet, it varies a bit from plant to plant, they get to be kind of rubbery all the way to the bottom. And at this point, they are soft and tender, and they are flexible. And their flavor is very much like rhubarb, highly nutritious and very much like rhubarb. In fact, honestly, we grow rhubarb and we prefer this to rhubarb. It has all the flavor potential of rhubarb, but it has less bite. It's hard to describe it unless you try it. The tartness is still as strong, and yet somehow it's milder on the tongue. Once it starts growing 4 to 6 feet tall, the canes will begin to harden. Right over there we have some canes. Those canes are left over from last year. In fact, most of the growth in this little patch is left over from last year. But when it gets to be 4 to 6 feet tall, the canes begin to harden. And when they first start to harden, when they're still green but they're getting to be brittle, the individual segments of the cane will fill up with a solution, and the solution is also highly nutritious. It's tart, just a bit sweet. It's nature's power drink. And when I'm hiking through the woods at that time, when I come across a patch of Japanese knotweed, what I'll do is I'll cut maybe a half dozen of the canes somewhere near the base and stick them in my backpack. And as I go along through the hike, when I want something to drink more substantial than just water, something nutritional, something with an energy benefit to it, I'll cut open a segment of that knotweed and just drink the solution out of it. There's probably a quarter to a third of a cup of solution in any given segment. So as you can imagine, one cane can provide a fair amount of liquid that you can drink. You don't have to suck it out or anything. It's just solution floating in those segments. And when you cut open the segment, it will just pour out as if you've just cut open a natural cup. Beyond that, when it reaches full height and it begins to dry like this, it's excellent for starting fires. Sometimes I'll cut the stuff up and then I'll just break it up. It's very easy to break up. And I'll use that to start fires in our fire pit or our barbecue pit. And at any point in time, if you happen to keep livestock, well, many livestock animals just love the stuff. We keep goats, and in the patch that grows near our house, to control it, I just stake the goats out in it, and the goats will eat it right down to the ground. Anything except this hard, dry, woody stuff here, they will eat it right down to the ground. They absolutely love it. Sheep love it too. Undoubtedly, other livestock would enjoy it, probably pigs and anything else it likes to feed on more substantial greenery. There's a nice thick cane right there, still in its tender stage. So I'm going to harvest a bag or two of this now. My wife processes this. It's quite easy to process. She just takes it home, strips the skin off. It just peels right off very easily. And she boils it down into a paste. She treats that as like a rhubarb paste to later add to pies. When our haskap berries and our strawberries and other berries begin to come in, she'll mix those with those, and she'll make strawberry knotweed pie, blueberry knotweed pie, haskap knotweed pie, sometimes just knotweed pie. We also, when we have a surfeit of milk, like at this time of the year when the goats are at maximum production, we'll mix it in with the goat milk as well, and we'll make knotweed goat milk ice cream. Identifying Japanese knotweed is remarkably easy. It will usually grow in patches like this. The patches will be bare pretty much of anything but knotweed, because knotweed tends to push out any competition. A few plants are rugged enough to tolerate it, like that young raspberry plant trying to come up right over there. But by and large, the patches will be empty of anything else but the knotweed. If you're looking for the knotweed from spring to early summer, the patches will appear mostly empty like this, and they'll be full of dry canes anywhere from 3 to 8 feet tall, such as right over there. The canes look very much like bamboo. They're segmented like bamboo. When the knotweed is young though, and begins to first come out of the ground, it will be slender, narrow, very flexible at the base. That cane is about a ½ inch wide right now. It will have these green-red, roughly triangular, spear-shaped leaves. The leaves are not glossy, they're just greenish yellow-red. Most distinctively along the cane, you'll see segments, just like with bamboo, but you'll see these red dots. And the red dots are more like narrow dashes. They're vertical, growing lengthwise with the plant along the green of the plant. The plant itself will have a rubbery texture anywhere that it's edible. When it starts to get hard, if you shake it, at that point you should feel solution building up in the segments, and that's when you get the solution out. Anytime it's smaller and rubberier, you use it as a food. Like I said, up to about 16 to 18 inches. The flavor is very mild, and it's somewhat like asparagus, but a bit tart. From about 18 inches to 3 to 4 feet, when the whole plant is still flexible, it hasn't begun to harden up yet. At that point, that's its rhubarb stage. That's how we think of it, it's rhubarb stage. At that point, you cut it right at the base and use the plant like rhubarb. And from about 3 to 4 feet on, as it grows, it'll harden, but while it's still green, that's when you get the nutritious solution out of it. And then at the end of its life cycle, when it begins to become woody and harden up, like that right over there, at that point it's mostly just good for fire starter. Be careful with Japanese knotweed when harvesting it, because it literally can reproduce from any little piece that touches the ground. So you want to keep it in bags. You don't want to let it spill anywhere that you're going. It's okay if it spills in the woods. It won't grow in shadowed areas. It only likes certain kind of ground. But the kind of ground that it likes is generally the same kind of ground that yards and playgrounds and such are made out of. So you don't want to let the stuff spill in any yard, any meadow, any place where you might not want it to grow, because once it sets in, it is very, very difficult to eradicate. I once heard Japanese knotweed described as a warrior plant because it is so tough. The plant literally, if you begin to attack it on a regular basis to get rid of it, the plant literally will change its growth cycle. It will retreat into its underground roots, and it will stay there as much as 20 years waiting for whatever threat it believed it was under to pass, and then emerge again at some random point. And those roots run very, very deep underground. You can eradicate most of the roots, and if there's a little segment in the ground, even just an inch of segment, probably less, the plant will grow all over again. Very hard to eradicate. You don't want to let this stuff fall anywhere you don't want the plant to appear. But if you can harvest it, and be careful not to spread it, it is one of the most nutritious, most delicious, and most edible plants that Mother Nature has to offer. That's quite a bit of the stuff. A full bag and change worth, and that only took about 5 minutes to harvest. Because it grows so densely concentrated, and it's a large plant, even when it's in its younger, tenderer stage, you can harvest a great deal of Japanese knotweed in very little time. That there will make 3 or 4 jars worth of concentrated knotweed rhubarb replacement. And it will go a long way. It'll make a number of batches of goat milk ice cream or pies for us. I've even thought about making a wine with it. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm sure it could be done. It's just such a beneficial plant. It's so tasty and nutritious and highly medicinal too. You could hardly choose a healthier thing to eat. And this is just one of the many goodies from Nature's Pantry, available in the forest near you.